Greetings, everyone. Imagine the times when there was no internet and mobile phones had not yet become a regular part of life. It was the 1970s, a decade of unique hobbies and passions that are now almost forgotten. Today, we will dive into the world of hobbies, which then seemed like an incredibly cool way to spend time. So get ready to learn about some weird but very interesting hobbies of the 1970s that will surely surprise you. Roller discos became one of the most popular hobbies of the 1970s. Imagine giant halls with neon lights, smoke machines, and people dancing on rollers to disco beats. It was a real phenomenon. People dressed in bright costumes, created unique images, and danced all night long. Roller discos were not just entertainment, but a real cultural movement. Another hobby that was very popular in the 70s was astrology and psychic reading. People created clubs where they discussed the influence of the stars on their lives, read horoscopes, and even tried to understand how to predict the future. Every second magazine of that time had a page with horoscopes, and for many it became a part of daily life. Astrology and belief in psychics was as common as scrolling news on social networks today. A real explosion in the 70s was caused by some iconic toys that many people don't even know about today. For example, the Magic Ball 8-ball. It was a ball with a liquid inside and answers to questions that, by design, could predict the future. There was also a phenomenon called pet rock, a rock that was sold as a pet. People bought an ordinary stone in a box, looked after it like a real animal. At first glance, it is surprising, but these toys were so popular that they became real symbols of the 70s. Another interesting trend of those years was handmade products from natural materials. People were fascinated by macrame, the creation of beautiful jewelry and decor from special knots on ropes. These were hanging plant pots, wall tapestries, bags, and accessories. Products made of wood, stones, and natural fabrics became popular. This movement contributed to the spread of ecological thinking and the desire for a simple, natural life. In the late 70s, people discovered a new world of entertainment, video games. One of the first was the Pong game, which captivated people with its simplicity and novelty. Then other arcade games appeared, and arcades with slot machines began to appear in many cities. It was something incredible. People spent hours throwing coins into the machines, trying to beat the records. In the 1970s, interest in yoga and meditation grew at an incredible rate. People discovered Eastern practices that promised to relieve stress and help find inner harmony. Unlike today, yoga was considered something exotic and innovative. It was not only an exercise, but also a way of thinking, a way of life. People signed up for courses, bought meditation books, and the craze quickly grew into a global movement that remains popular today. In the 1970s, vinyl records became a true symbol of music culture. Music was an important part of everyone's life, and record collecting became a hobby that united millions of people. People spent hours in music stores, looking for new albums and rare records. Some created whole collections and even special rooms for their records. It was a time when music was felt in every cell, and collecting records was a way to show your passion. Gardening gained particular popularity in the 70s. Many people became interested in growing their own vegetables and herbs, even if they lived in the city. The movement for an ecological lifestyle and organic food gradually gained momentum, and for many, gardening became not only a way to grow food, but also a hobby that brought peace of mind. People grew everything from basil on the windowsill to real beds in the yard. Another hobby that was extremely popular in the 70s was needlework. Handmade products such as knitted items, bracelets, beaded jewelry have become an integral part of the style. People made their own jewelry and accessories, making them unique and personal. Everyone wanted to do something with their hands, and this hobby became part of a lifestyle where everyone could express themselves through creativity. In the 1970s, cars became not just a means of transportation, but a true symbol of freedom and individuality. Then car clubs began to appear, where car owners gathered to discuss models, exchange advice, and customize their cars. People added vinyl decals, repainted bodies, added accessories to make their cars look unique. This hobby united young people who considered their cars a part of their identity. Collecting coins and stamps was very popular in the 70s, especially among children and teenagers. People looked for rare specimens and exchanged them at fairs and exhibitions. This hobby had not only an aesthetic, but also an educational value, because each coin or stamp told its own story. Collectors devoted a lot of time to find rare specimens and exchanged finds with others. With the development of technology in the 70s, many people became interested in amateur cinema. Super 8 cameras became widely available, and people started making their own movies, from home videos to small productions. This craze allowed for creativity, and many families had entire collections of home videos. Today, these records are a real treasury of memories of the past. In the 70s, board games became very popular, especially with the advent of such cult games as Dungeons and Dragons. These were not just games, but real worlds in which players could immerse themselves, create their characters, and take part in adventures. Role-playing games became a real phenomenon that united friends and created unforgettable memories. Such games were a great way to spend time in company and develop imagination. Competitor radio, or so-called CB radio, became incredibly popular in the 1970s. It was a network of radio stations through which people could communicate over long distances. Truck drivers, for example, used radios to communicate during long journeys, and ordinary people had their radio stations at home. CB radio became not only a means of communication, but also a kind of subculture with its own language, slang, and special code. So the 1970s was a truly unique decade, full of interesting and eccentric hobbies that seem strange now, but were part of everyday life back then. These hobbies reflect how the world has changed and show that each decade has something original and unique. I hope you enjoyed this trip back in time. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting stories from other decades.